You may not remember this, but at the very, very beginning of the year, we said a very big statement that we're going to focus on a lot in the next couple of weeks. That statement was all about just the idea of what math is. And math is the study of patterns and relationships. That's what all of the things that we've been doing have been related to. We've always found some sort of pattern, or there's some sort of correlation or relationship between two or more things. And then the topics we're going to start now are no different. In fact, the very first topic is really just patterns. How do we take one item and relate it to another? What's the connection? In mathematics, a lot of times we look at things like formulas, and formulas are nothing more than relationships. How does this thing relate to that thing? It's like thing one and thing two. A lot of times those formulas can be something as simple as changing Fahrenheit degrees to Celsius degrees. There's a relationship between those two items that is always the same. Or there's even a silly relationship between the number of times a cricket chirps in a certain amount of time and the temperature. So you can gauge the temperature or predict the temperature based on how many times a cricket chirps. I know, crazy, huh? Or one that is pretty common in terms of everyday kinds of things would be the police. If they can figure out if there was an accident, a car accident of some kind, they can determine how fast that car was going based on the length of the skid marks that it makes on the road. And there's a formula. There's a relationship between the length of the skid mark and the speed of the car. All those things are relationships, patterns. So we're going to start looking at some really basic types of patterns in the just using simple things like dots and circles and squares and toothpicks even. So if you take a look at the paper you have in front of you, it says use the patterns below to answer each of the questions. And I've given you 3 different stages. So stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. Each stage has a different number of dots. So for example, stage 1 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots. Stage 2 has 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 dots. And stage 3 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 dots. Okay, so based on this pattern that we have so far, if we were to continue with the same exact pattern, our goal is really to say, all right, is there a connection between this number and the number of dots? And then I want to find the same exact relationship between this number 2 for stage 2 and 9 dots, and this number 3 and these 13 dots. Now you could draw out stage 4 and stage 5. In fact, if you want to, let's go ahead and do that. Let's just add on to stage 3 here. Have to scooch up here a little bit. So I noticed that every time it goes up a stage, I add on this little section right here. And then when I got another stage, I added this section right here. So if I add the 4th stage, I'm going to add on 1 circle, 2 circles up, and then 1 circle, 2 circles over. So I had 13 here, so stage 4 would be 15, 16, 17, 14, 15, 16, 17. Whoops, miscounted. So stage 4 would have 17 dots. And then you go ahead and fill in stage 5. Go ahead and pause me for a second and draw it out. Okay, so now that we're back, you should have had a drawing very similar to mine. I had to squeeze mine in here a little bit. But you had 17, we go 18, 19, 20, and 21. So we have 21 dots on stage 5. Now, we're going to take this information and put it together. One of the most common ways to organize data is just information, is to put it in a table. And the table that we're going to use is called a T-table, because it looks like a T, the letter T lowercase. So I made a little T table right here because we want to relate the stage number to the number of dots. So let's fill in what we had. We had stage 1 had 5 dots. Stage 2 had 9 dots. Stage 3, we had 13, I believe, yes, 13 dots. Stage 4, we calculated 17 dots. And then the last one, stage 5, was 21 dots. So if we really, really wanted to, we could just keep going. We could say 6 and how many dots? Stage 7 and how many dots? And we could keep on going. That's a little tedious because we have to use what we got before, the numbers we calculated before, in order to figure out the next one. But it's doable. So let's start looking for some patterns. Let's look for some relationships here. Hopefully, once you started looking, you notice each stage goes up by 1. So we go from 1, we add 1 to that, and we get 2. Take the 2, add 1 to that, and we get 3, and so on. But over here in the dots, if you look as you go down the column, hopefully you're saying, hey, I see a pattern. And you would be correct. And what is that pattern? Go ahead, you can say it. Don't be shy. There you go. Very good. So you should have said, well, we're adding 4 every time. So I take the number of dots from the last stage. If I add 4 to it, that'll tell me the number of dots I would need for the next one. Now, more importantly, and this is where I'm going to leave you to your own thoughts, is right here. What if I said, how many dots will you need for stage 20? Well, if you really, really want to, you could keep going 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way down to 20, and then keep with this pattern of adding 4 and see how many dots we would need for stage 20. That's fine. But what about when you get to this one, stage 100? That's going to be no fun at all. So I'm going to give you a couple hints here. Our main goal is to find a relationship between this number and that number, and this number here and that number. So whatever I do to the number that's in the stage column to get 5, I want to be able to do the exact same thing to 2 to get 9. And I want to do the exact same thing to 3 to get 13. And the exact same thing to 4 to get 17, and the exact same thing to 5 to get 21, so that all I have to do is, once I figure out what that pattern is, that relationship, I take 20, do that same operation to it, and that'll tell me the number of dots. So to start off, I might say, okay, well, how do I get from 1 to 5? Well, the most obvious answer is going to be add 4. All right, so let's try that. So if I take 2 and I add 4 to it, I'm going to get 6. What I want to get is 9. So taking the stage number and adding 4 to it isn't going to work because we already ruined that on the very second try. So we have to come with something else. That means instead of just adding 4, we might have to try multiple operations. So you might have to add and multiply. Or you might have to multiply and subtract. It's possible you might have to divide and add. Or you might have to divide and subtract. Now, I'll narrow down your choices here a little bit. In all of these, to begin with, we're going to be focusing on strictly addition, subtraction, and multiplication. There is not going to be any division to start off. So we'll save these for later once we kind of get the hang of this. So let's focus on these guys right here and these here only. So okay, let's try another option. Let's say I'm going to take stage 2 and stage 1, and I'm going to multiply it by 2. So I take 2 times 1, and that gives me 2. Well, what do I have to do to 2 to get me up to 5? Well, I'd have to add 3, and that gives me 5. So let's try the second one. If I take 2, multiply it by 2, and then add 3, I have 2 times 2 plus 3. Well, 2 times 2 is 4, plus 3 is 7. We want 9, so we're a little bit low. So that means you have to keep trying things to figure out what's going to work. So I know if I multiply by 2, that gets me to 7, and add 3, that gets me to 7, which is pretty close, but it's not quite there. So you might have to try multiplying by a different number and then see how much you have to add. Or multiply by a different number and then subtract something. So I'm going to leave that to you, as long as you understand what it is that you're trying to do. You're relating these numbers to these numbers. There is a pattern that will work for each and every one. So whatever I do to 1 to get to 5, I will do the exact same thing to 2 to get to 9, 3 to get to 13, 4 to get to 17, 5 to get to 21, and then 20 to get to whatever this mystery number is, and 100 to get to whatever this mystery number is. So once you get that figured out, you can put into words, just write down here in words, how you came up with the answers to these two. How did you get that? And then down here, this is the money question right here, the last one. What rule can you come up with for this pattern? Which means write a formula that relates the stage number to the number of dots. So let me give you an example without giving you the answer. Let's just say that my multiply by 2 and add 3. Let's pretend that that worked. Okay, it didn't. You're going to figure out the real thing. But if that did work, then the rule I might write would be if I multiply 2 times the stage number and add 3 is equal to the number of dots. That would be a very flimsy kind of formula or rule. And then I might take that one step further and I say, okay, well, I'm going to say I'm going to use T to stand for stage number. I just don't like the variable S. I would use S, but S looks like a 5. And then I'm going to use D for dots. So let's take this and just go one step further and put in variables. So if I take 2 times the stage number, well, the stage number is represented by the variable T, and then I add 3 to that, that equals the number of dots. And I used D to stand for dots. So this right here is a very nice rule that relates stage number to dots. Again, not the correct one, but that's just an example to get you started. So you are now on your own. You have the basic idea of how all these fit together and how it works. So now you're going to take this, finish that page up, and go on to the next. And just keep on working. You will get to some pages called Build-A-Patterns, and you'll do the same exact idea there. The format looks just a little bit different, but it's the exact same idea. So good luck to you. I hope you find those great mathematical relationships, because this is kind of like a little puzzle. And hopefully you're going to start realizing, hey, I see some connections here as you get those brain waves working. So good luck, and let me know if you have any questions. See ya. Bye-bye.